Alright, welcome back to the shop. So today we're going to start on a new project, and what we got is a very large grinder, and that is a straight grinder. It's old straight grinder. Here's some of the pieces. It's missing some. We ordered some in. See if we can fix her up. Cord, not in bad shape, but we got a new one for it all the same. So there we go, big old straight grinder. We're going to tear this down, give her the good old once over, and see if we can't make it look like new again. So here we go. Okay, so first off, what we're going to do is, I have test run this and it runs, but we're going to test between hot and neutral on this, and we're going to see what kind of readings we get with the Megger, and that'll give us a baseline for what's going on inside of the motor here. You know, a lot of these older tools, they got time on them, and the insulation isn't always what it once was. This is a 120 volt tool. We could probably test in the 250 volt range, but we're going to stick with 125 volt just to give the insulation a little bit better chance of survival. So let's see what we get here. We got hot and neutral on the plug. Everything's safe there. It's laying out of the way. And here we go. So you can see this is climbing as we're continuing the test. I'm still playing around with this new meter. I think I'm going to let it go a little bit here until it levels out, and we'll see what kind of number we get. Okay, so here we go. You saw that went up and down a little bit there. I don't know if the battery's starting to go in this or if it's just where it leveled out. We got 3362 mega ohms, and we'll continue this test when we after we put the tool back together, and we'll see if we get something similar. Just something to screw around with here and check a baseline, see if we actually do help these tools out with insulation when we do the varnish. Okay, so next I think what we'll do is we'll take the handle apart and get this old cord off. This old cord, I don't know if we can see it or not, but it is getting a little crackly, and I don't really like crackly cords on stuff, so I have the means to replace them, so I like to do so. So here we go. Okay, so let's see what we get inside here. Looks like this tool hasn't really been used super hard over the years. Has a nice quality switch on it. It's actually gasketed up here, which is something that's pretty unusual to see. That's pretty impressive, actually. The switch, very high quality switch in today's standards. Has the lock so you can get thrown into space with this thing, and also off your job site. So we have a good ground screw there, two screws fastening the switch into the handle right here, and this some guys call it fish paper, whatever, wrapping the switch. So let's continue here and get this guy apart. Okay, let's get this unruly cord out of our way here. So really good cable clamp here on this thing. Nice quality. They don't make tools quite like this anymore. Gravity, it still works. Got a case of the dropsies today. So we'll get our terminals undone here. There's our our ground. And we'll take note here. We got coming in, we have the neutral on this side, which matches up with the black wire, and the black wire on this side, which matches up with the yellow. Okay, so overall this cord isn't atrocious. At some spots it's actually in decent shape yet. I don't know that I'd be 100% afraid of it, but when I restore these tools I like to put new cords on them, so we're just going to take this one off. Okay, so there we go. We have our motor coming in, or our load side of the switch to the motor. Get these disconnected. Alright, let's take a look at that switch. Here we can see it's a 1.5 horse rated at 250 volt, or 1 horse, oh that's DC, or 1 horse 250 volt AC. And this motor, being a universal motor, will run on AC or DC. 10 amp 250 volt, 20 amp 125 volt. Made by Cutler Hammer. So it's a nice old switch, really nice snap action in it. Has a little piece there with the spring, and that's how the locking mechanism works on there. It's just a little piece that sticks out with a little ring around it there, and that's what keeps that engaged. And you squeeze the trigger and spring loaded, it releases. So we'll stick that aside. We'll get that all cleaned up for reassembly. So now that we got all that stuff out, we'll try and get our screws under control here and get the rest of this handle off. And here's a look at that gasket. It actually has holes in it for the wires, so it can only go on one way. I'm hoping these terminals will come through it. If not, we're going to modify it so they do, because I don't want to remove them. So yeah, this was obviously, there we go, assembled. These crimp terminals were put on there after the gasket was installed. Not surprising there. So looking in the end here, we can see the end of the casement here for the motor. I'm assuming this is going to be a blind bearing shaft. There's our brushes. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'll get the brushes out so we know they're out. And we don't have an incident where we accidentally pull something out and mess up a brush. So that's a nice looking brush holder there, or the retaining screw. Yeah, I don't think this thing saw a lot of life. I mean, that brush looks very good. Very little signs of heat on it. Sometimes the springs will get discolored here from current or what have you. Very little amount of wear on this, so I think we got ourselves a good one here. This one should just be a good cleanup candidate. Okay, well, the brushes don't match, so somebody's been into this thing before. You can see this brush has a different style spring than the other. It's not really going to affect a whole lot. Life on both brushes is about the same. Maybe it's just out of two different stacks at the factory. Who knows? It obviously worked. And we can see inside there to the commutator. Alright, so another layer now. Take these pieces off here. They're off the mandrel end. Okay, so we'll take a look now at the business end of this thing. There's the grinder end. We'll take these 4 screws out and see what we get. Okay, there we go. That grease is very hard, but has very, very little use on it. That is pretty amazing. That's the factory grease in that thing, probably. That is very lightly used. Okay. Here's our motor adapter plate. Also has that nice new grease on it. A little bit of dirt here. That'll be easy to clean up. Now we take a look here. Have ourselves a new departure bearing. I have to see once we get a little bit more into it, but I think that bearing's going to be just fine. This thing seems like it has very low amount of time on it. So let's get that bearing out. See what we're working with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screwdriver on either side here, pry up on this very gently. It doesn't take a lot of force normally, so we don't make any marks on the motor housing. I'm hoping I get the entire rotor out with its other end bearing, but we'll see. And we got lucky. So there we go. This is why we want to take these old tools apart. You can see this old grease is not very good. So while the rest of the tool is in excellent shape, I mean, this thing is really nice. You can see the little string band here on the commutator end holding the fields together, and the commutator segments on this thing are just absolutely beautiful. They're very crisp and in nice shape. Rotor itself looks to be in nice condition. A little bit of rust starting on the fan blades. We'll take care of all that. These bearings also, loading them, they feel smooth, very smooth. So this one seems to have a little bit more resistance than this one, which is to be expected. This is the guy out in no man's land all the time. So it's another reason why I like to take these old tools apart, just to re-grease them, if anything. But we'll give this thing a good going over and see if we can't see what we can do with the insulation value on it too. So we'll do a little playing around with it and make it sparkly. So looking down inside the belly of the beast here, we can see a really nice large stator field right here, and I'm gonna have to cut off one of these crimp terminals. I can see at least this one, probably the other one too, and we'll get these wires out these two holes. But this thing should come apart pretty nicely. So a little trick with these, a lot of guys will call them stake-on terminals, is it's only crimped up to this mark. You can see where that's crimped to. So I like to cut it just past that. And you can see I actually cut just the wire off of that, and I didn't lose a whole lot of conductor. You don't have to cut these off right on the back side of this insulation that's on there, because that really, the more wire you can save in these things, the better off you're going to be, because they only have so much in them. Okay, so these are off. Now we can take this apart and take our stator field out. So we just want to make a mental note here. We can see the top of the tool. This yellow wire is off to the bottom of the nameplate, and bottom of the nameplate being indexed this way, that you would be reading it up and down, and the black is indexed towards the top of the nameplate. Now we can see when we look in here that the black goes right to the armature, or I should say the stator field. The yellow goes right to that brush holder, and then this other brush holder here is jumpered to the motor field. So we're going to have to get these brush holders loose, and they're held in with these Allen screws right here. We're going to have to get them loose first, because they are going to be, one of them we don't have to worry about, but the other one, this one I don't have to necessarily worry about, but this one I do, because this needs to come out with that stator. Okay, so we're moving along with the disassembly here. I already removed one of the brush holders, and that looks like this. This is the brush holder that went to the switch, and this is the motor stator lead that goes to the switch. And these brush holders are in really nice condition, nice and clean still, but we're going to clean them up nicer. And one thing with these set screws for the brushes, brush holders rather, you want to kind of play around with them a little bit. Make sure you make a mark on here, and that will be this mark here when you take it out, so that when we reassemble it, we can look down in this hole and see where it was sitting originally, and get it indexed close to where it had been originally. And these are just a set screw, cap screw. Just use a regular Allen for that. So there we go, one brush holder out. This one, in order to get the motor field out, we had to make this one get loose, and there's not enough slack in the wire here, I don't think. No, we'll have to start getting the stator out in order to get this brush holder out the rest of the way, which isn't all that uncommon. So here we go. Screws are a little snug. Sorry, I gotta pull it off frame. The other screw, and we can see this one starting to get oxidized in place. That one definitely turned out a lot harder. We can feel the stators getting loose. And keeping track, the brush holder that has the brush holder attached to the motor is the top side of the nameplate. So we just want to keep track of that sort of thing, so we make sure we get her assembled in the right way. So now, looking at our stator, this is a really nicely made lamination. See all the cores here. The varnish is holding up pretty well on this, though we're gonna reinforce it. We're gonna clean this up good and recoat it. This brush holder looks good as well. Looks like it may have been installed lightly, a different way at one time. So there we go. That's a nice armature housing there. And then taking a look at our motor casement itself. We can get this off yet. That's just a rest to keep the thing from rolling off the bench. And the inside, not too bad, it's dirty, but we're going to clean that up. And we'll probably take a tap down inside here and just kind of clean them holes up a little bit, just to be sure we don't have any of that corrosion stuck inside there when we put all this back together. And we will use anti-seize when we reassemble. There we go. There's that piece. I think we got everything pretty much off this that's going to come off it. I'm probably, I don't know, we'll see. Maybe we'll take this off too. I do have other rivets here. We might just re-rivet this back in so we can clean up under it. Because this one still has a really nice sticker on it yet, I'm going to try and tape around this, and when we clean everything up, we'll still have that on there. There we go. It's just a little breather for the motor. Get some air in there for that side and this side. This is probably so you can access the brush holders a little bit better. Nice little touch that they used to do on things back when they used to make things to be serviceable, and people cared about that sort of thing more. So there we go. We got that one stripped down pretty good. We'll continue on with some different segments then.